the moment focusing on children and families, healthy aging, and neurorehabilitation and stroke and mental health. And these lectures are happening at the moment in our public lecture series every few weeks, and Nina will tell you at the end what's to come. And so I'm really happy to hand over to Sophia, who is course leader for the MA Dramatherapy here, who's going to chair tonight's events. It's just a quick welcome from me.
Hello everyone, as Helen said, yes, I'm Sophia Kondaris. I'm the course leader for the MA Dramatherapy training. We are ever so delighted, Louise, if I can say, to have you come and present with us. So Louise has worked in the NHS since 2011 in early intervention psychosis. And if you put NICE and dramatherapy, so NICE being the National Institute of Clinical Excellence and Dramatherapy in the search engine, the first thing that comes up is, oh, Louise, have you frozen? I hope not. The first thing that comes up is some work that Louise has done to enable dramatherapy to be seen as an effective treatment in the NICE guidelines. So Louise, you can tell us much more about that. And it's very lovely to have you here. So it's over to you.
Thank you very much. I am a bit worried about my screen because I realise that with this many people, sometimes my bandwidth struggles. So just wave your arms or phone me something if I freeze. I'll start to share. I think I can share my screen. You see that? Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So
it's, sorry, somebody's saying that the volume is very low. Is there anything that we can do to make the volume a bit higher at all, Louise, or even Nina?
What I can do, is that better if I just speak really close? So my head's going to be huge now, but I just, you won't necessarily.
That's great. I can hear you at least. Is that okay for everybody?
Can everyone hear that?
Oh, yes, much better. Somebody said, yes, lovely.
Okay, well, I'll stay this close.
Great. All right.
I'm going to talk for about 45 minutes and then there'll be time for some questions, I hope. So psychosis and dramatherapy, capturing data at the margins. Just a little bit about me. I worked for a grant maker and I was so impressed with the impact of the drama therapy we were funding. I changed career in 2003. I've been working for 9 years now at Leeds Early Intervention in Psychosis service. Originally, I was supervised by the very wonderful late John Casson, and he helped me trial group work for disengaged service users as per the guidelines. And this led to further charity funding and employment. And I produced through a health education in England internship in 2016 some data that is now on the NICE guidelines, as you mentioned. And I recommend everybody collects their data and shares it accordingly because it's a really helpful device. My work is has moved into looking at service user voice really, and I've just written a chapter in the Practical Guide to Hearing Voices, which is going to be published next month, and I provide supervision and setup provision for other NHS services looking to have something similar in their early intervention service. So a bit of background. This presentation is going to be a little bit about psychosis, the existing research, the goals of this piece of work and the results and implications. So to start with, if you look up on the psychosis is when people lose some contact with reality. This might involve seeing or hearing things that other people cannot see or hear and believing things that are not actually true. And what's interesting is that this can be very sensorial. So it's all the senses. It can be smelling things or tasting things that aren't real. And it can be very disturbing. I think lots of people hear about people who hear voices, but when we work with with people who are having a psychotic episode, we don't actually always know what they're experiencing because they're not necessarily interested in telling. So I think that's really important. It can be very distressing and can really affect people's behaviour. And the experience of these symptoms of psychosis is often referred to as having a psychotic episode. And that's important because I think a lot of people confuse psychosis and schizophrenia. So schizophrenia is more than one episode of psychosis. And that's why we have early intervention services. They're there to protect against further episodes through a biopsychosocial framework. So that's medicine to stabilize, psychological interventions like CBT or family work, and then some psychoeducational work, which is probably where I fit in, because NICE guidelines advocate the use of arts therapies as a second response. Sometimes it works the other way around because people can't engage. And I think clinically, most people really think of psychosis as a response to trauma. That might not be PTSD. It's more likely to be sort of chronic, complex, long, enduring, and it could be very early preverbal trauma. And we use drama therapy when people can't engage at all with the services. And it might be because they're too frightened. It might be because they don't have any empathy. They're too wrapped up in their own problems, or they're just blunted and unable to explain anything. And people sometimes don't even know what the presentation means. It's sort of unreachable. And just to sort of put what I do in a theoretical context, it's based on practice-based evidence, which I researched when I started. So around 2012, I used Casson's model, which is to say that the client is expert and they have control. So they control all the elements, the frequency of therapy, the who comes, and of course what we do and how we do it. So that's for drama therapists, maybe not so known to music therapists, this idea of aesthetic distance. So you find the right distance from the issue, and that might be not even, working outside the issue. And I use Jennings' EPR model because one of those developmental abilities will be possible for people with extreme communication difficulties in psychosis. So that's body work, projecting onto objects, or looking at roles. What roles do we want more of? What do we want less of? That's the model. And it works, it seems to work for about 20% of all the service users. So in Leeds at the moment, that's about 450 people. And about 20% of those service users might be referred to drama therapy for grounding work, for co-produced positive solutions, goal setting, diagnostic uncertainty. And sometimes it's just, we have, I see a lot of people for whom English is not their first language. And so it sort of transcends those linguistic constructs. In fact, before lockdown, and that is significant because it has changed, I was working with about 80% of people who were Black and Asian minority ethnic groups, and also about 20% who would be classified as having, under the NHS 10-year plan, a health inequality priority of autism or learning disability combined with their psychosis. So 45% of the people I work with move on very quickly. Some of them only have 2 or 3 sessions. 39% of people work through a whole group or maybe more. Some people do up to 3 groups because they're allowed to be in the EIP service for 3 years. And 16% may just stay with individual work. So I think that's the background. And just to talk a little bit about existing research, when we decided we were going to look at a thematic analysis, we decided to do a formal literature review through the NHS literature base. And all that really came up that was relevant, that was really relevant, was neuroscience and the idea of interoception. Some of you might know proprioception. Interoception is the inside out. So it's about feeling. And one of the core symptoms of psychosis, of schizophrenia, is a blunting. So, and that's been established through neuroscience, through neuroimaging. We can see that the sense of self and the sense of other isn't being picked up cognitively at all. And in 2009, Langton and Ward wrote about the need to develop insight as a key skill in recovery. That work has developed, and now Thoreau just recently has demonstrated that through witnessing and embodying characters, fictional characters, we can see a liminal shift in those very fixed beliefs. Havstein and Franklin and his cohort have looked at the similar processes across all the modalities of arts therapies. And so I feel comfortable saying to all of you that we looked at RCTs that had been done across the modalities, and dance movement therapy have been quite successful. There was an RCT that showed that mirroring, witnessing, enhanced psychosocial function. And I think all of us do a form of that. Movement work, which is obviously core to what we do, increases quality of life and interpersonal skills. And there have been developments in art and music therapy, but the conclusion is this is just really difficult to measure. So we had to widen our research goal. And when we looked at Google Scholar, drama therapy over the last 5 years, there was some really important findings. Armstrong has really defined dramatic embodiment and indeed dramatic projection as the moment of change, and that being really a helpful focus with this specific population. Melee has also shown theatre experiments affect cognition, and systematic reviews of Born around drama therapy groups shows improved insight, friendship building and empowerment, more self-confidence. Vinegar, Skoll and Okabe, there's an increase in cognitive, particularly useful for cognitive impairment issues. Sevi has identified psychodrama improves quality of life. But of course, with all of these things, the call is for more research. And Tang very recently produced an improvisation manual that can be used in arts and health for people who are clinically at risk from psychosis. And that again looks promising. The music therapy I'm less familiar with, but I think what's interesting is similar things, reduce in costs, reduce in hospital admissions, and that traditional music worldwide in Korea and Iran has shown interpersonal functioning improves. So there's a lot to work on, and there's a real opportunity, and my thematic analysis has sort of been put towards this particular journal article in the Psychosis Journal, which really talks about how CBT isn't adequate because it lacks that embodied sense of other. To do CBT, at least this is my understanding, there has to be some empathic, some understanding of other. So he and actually a lot of people who wrote that article highlight the need for more tailored attention to the in-body experience of psychosis, suggesting self-other treatments are needed either in group or by social media. And he actually talked about this need for a robust self-presence, and talks about body movement and even social media, avatar therapy, that kind of thing. Doesn't mention drama therapy. And this is our problem. We're often missed because our work is fragmented and small scale, as mine is. And Chang recently wrote that he did a study of creative art therapy trials. It showed improvement in pilots and case studies, but not in RCTs. The lack of methodological rigor and inconsistency in study methods and outcome measures have prevented the advancement of creative art therapy for use in severe mental illness. So why is there so little evidence, and why isn't it mainstream? Why is it too difficult? Well, I think perhaps people are are not doing research on this population at all, because complex populations don't get included in research. They're too risky. So they often exclude that dual diagnosis issues. Other people will be able to use the language better than I. But when I did my own study, I noticed that these people were often excluded. And my early scoping also showed that the clients that I work with wouldn't engage. They didn't want to be in an RCT. They didn't want to sit on a waiting list. When they were ready to do therapy, they just wanted to get on with it. Research is complex for non-verbal work. I know we all know that. And it's really hard when you're working with really anxious, traumatized people to get them to engage with paperwork. How do you write about embodiment? And we all know as clinicians, it's damaging to unpack metaphors. So it's difficult, and our quantitative measurements are difficult too. Over the 9 years that I write, 8 years that I write about, we have had a consistent 13-point improvement across each year for all the clients. But unfortunately, there's no reliability rating on this way of recording improvement. My NHS is very supportive, but in 9 years we haven't come up with anything else. And the short Warwick Edinburgh mental well-being scale, which we use as a questionnaire, is really erratic. And I think it often goes down because people move from a grandiose, delusional set of answers to much more realistic ones. So I'm sure you're all nodding your heads. You all know that this is what happens when we do research. So we wanted to know what people found useful, if there was a change or specific moment of change that they were aware of. So we used a semi-structured interview post-therapy right from the beginning of this trial and right up to, well, we're still using it, giving them the opportunity to comment further on their experience of therapy. The clients were, there was 260 clients that could have taken part across 2 locations between 2013 and 2020. 125 clients provided some kind of outcome data, and 47 agreed to a post-therapy interview. And as you'll know, you need quotes to use quotes, some consent as well. So what I think is quite interesting is that when we think about diversity data, this speaks to Chang, the lack of robust data, because we're having to do this over 9 years. It's effectively a bit of a long study, and cultural changes have affected how we collect even this data, because we've had 3 different funders with 3 different ways of collecting it. And over 9 years, the way we consider this data has changed so radically. When I started, people didn't like to ask if people were straight or if they weren't, and now that's very much a changed situation. And I think what's significant, what I draw your attention to, is what I've highlighted in yellow, which is the unknown and where they preferred not to say. Sometimes it's as in religion, it's the most profound. So this speaks of our data. This is the problem, and I wonder what the problem really is. Is it about power? Is it about our clients being in a therapy which is about them choosing to say no and then preferring not to say? Or is it that they actually don't know, and they don't, at the moment of being asked, have the capacity to answer? They're dealing often with really big issues around identity, so they may not know. And there is, of course, the problems of increasingly people don't like being put into boxes. So it's increasingly difficult, this. So we were looking really in this study at just the questionnaire, because that was a consistent piece of information that we had, 47 of them. It initially had been to inform service provision, but we've continued to use it over those 2 funding cycles and actually beyond. And very helpfully, my service employed an independent research psychologist to deliver, to do the work for me, with me. These were the questions that we agreed at the beginning. How satisfied do you feel with the drama therapy sessions? What did you like, dislike about drama therapy? Did you notice a change in yourself over time? Was there a particular exercise, session, game, moment that led to this change? When did you first notice this change? This is using Braun and Clark's 6-stage thematic analysis. And we chose this as it's a bottom-up data-led approach. There's no theory. We're not looking for anything. We're just sifting through the words that they have used. So the process the psychologist went through was to familiarize herself with the data, then code the keywords and phrases from each client's feedback, then using these codes, generating sub-themes and themes by repeatedly returning to the data to confirm suitability, given the client's comments. Then we worked together to redefine and name each theme, making sure that the N names represented the feedback from the original data set, and these themes are presented in this analysis. So there were 2 overarching themes that clients discussed: the process of change and the experience of drama therapy. And we presented these today as charts with follow-up quotes, which are sometimes as notes because some of the data was collected just by writing it down. So some of the care coordinators were capturing this data independently of me, and they didn't write the whole words. Sorry, they didn't write in whole sentences. So the first one is the process of change. I can't quite see what's at the top of that. I wonder if there's a way of, I'll have to try and guess what that one is. I think that is about taking action. So it's about engaging with others, increased motivation, starting new things, ability to make choices. That was something people identified with. Personal changes, sleeping more, just trying to see, increased focus, concentration, coping with understanding emotions, coping with understanding voices, reduction of checking behaviors, for example, OCD behaviors, feeling more connected to their own body. An individual process. So for some it was gradual, for some it happened in a specific moment. Often people talked about how change was influenced by the feedback from either the therapist or by other people in the group, and that change could be quite slow. People commented on new perspectives really contributing to the process of change, becoming more hopeful, seeing things differently, increased confidence, increased self-awareness, noticing connections, and being open. So increased trust, ability to express and communicate was important. So, oh, here we go, sorry. Taking action. I used to struggle whilst crossing the street or shopping with different people. Sometimes with their body language or expression, it would feel like, okay, I have to stay away. It gives that tension. But now I'm more like how we pretend in the drama therapy, like how I dress up and pretend. It's the same. I don't have to get offended. Eat and go to school or make an appointment. I'm just planning or working it out. No double thoughts in my head. Should I not? And I think this is an interesting thing to start with, because I use Renia Muna's emotional greetings in every group meeting. And it's what we do at the beginning when we've come out of our relaxation. And every week it becomes more complex and more deliberate. So at the beginning, people wear lots of protection. So they might put sunglasses on and hats and things so that they can do that, which is what she refers to here. And they might write down a list on post-it notes and stick them on the wall, lots of emotions, and then individually point, yeah, let's do that one. So there's lots of distance. There's no self-expression. I'd like to do depressed. There's none of that. It's all very protected and distance. And then as the weeks go on, they get more and more fluid and they start having long conversations when they meet each other, and that goes on and on. And I think that that's what that is really talking about. Increased motivation. I can go outside now. I used to think people were watching, and now I remember, keep going, no judgments. And that's interesting because those are words that come up a lot. No judgment. There's no judgment here. And it's about ability to make choices. So clients spoke of going out more, engaging with friends and family, starting new things, such as volunteering, joining other groups. One client's goal changed through therapy from wanting to join big groups to making choices for himself. Before, I'd get pressured into going into large groups where my voices get louder. Now, if it's more than 5 people, I tend not to go. I'd say, look, it's too much. I'm not going. I used to see it as a weakness, but now I don't. I realise I've got better things to do in my time. Casson identified the importance of learning to say no where clients lack autonomy. It is a primary goal of many of the sessions. Celebrating no is something clients enjoy. Now, this goes against our CBT ideas about forcing yourself to do things you don't like. I'm definitely better at saying no now. Another said, it's taught me a lot, like sticking up for myself. I've noticed a change in my confidence, and I'm getting on better at college, and I'm getting out more and going to friends. Personal changes were also about understanding emotions and connecting to the body. I started to understand my feelings and emotions better. I feel more confident in meeting new people, to understand my feelings and emotions. The balance between these helped me through grieving. Others noticed I'm more calmer, not as many outbursts, better able to manage my anger. I got my confidence back and gained more. It really helped with accepting who I am. I can show people who I am rather than oversharing verbally. I never knew there was such a thing as communication without a single word. Speechless communication has given me confidence in real life. I've started to feel my body more. Previously, I was so in my head, I didn't feel physical pain. And also coping with voices. Unless you talk about the voices, they're going to get so much work. Like when I first started here, I was up for violence. But now I can differentiate between the ideas spouted by the voices and decide which voices are good and which are not, which ones to follow through with and which to not. Drama therapy helped with this, and I can now get into groups of 4, 5, even 6 people for half an hour to an hour. This client could not engage with CBT. He was in the startle phase, which is where you don't know what's going on and you're not prepared to talk about voice hearing. He used the theatrical structure as a liminal space to externalize his voices into characters without giving them any substance. Using the qualities of a theatrical realm, they were made real as characters in fantasy. Being open was really important. Clients noticed changes, developing more trust in themselves and others, feeling like drama therapy had helped them to be more open in their communication styles led to the change. Yes, talking more to staff about personal stuff. It did bring things more out in the open as to how I was thinking. I've become more talkative. I'm able to have a conversation and more confident. Feel more open, feeling more confident, able to express myself more, feel like I can trust people again to a certain degree, transferred into everyday life. And new perspectives. Clients often noticed that their perspectives of things had altered. The most common shifts were around hope for the future. They're developing confidence. Feedback also suggested that therapy helped people to see things differently. improving their self-awareness, while others started to see a more realistic and less guilty view of themselves. It's good to look at things from another perspective. I was able to better understand people and myself. I became aware of myself as people gave me feedback on myself. I looked at myself differently. I didn't know I was an artistic creature, creative rather. Being hopeful made me feel good. When I return to my home, I feel very relaxed, and I try to remember what I did to make me feel positive. It has made me realise there are a lot of good people about. It's made me see differently. Some clients reflected that the change had been a slow and gradual process, while others were able to acknowledge specific sessions or activities. 3 weeks to a month, as I started to get used to things, it scared me at first, being there a few weeks. It gives me more confidence. It's helped quite a lot. It's been a gradual process. Slowly, over time, I suppose it's something that grows every week. I was surprised. It was really helpful in ways I can't explain, and I'd recommend it to other people. The change was quite gradual, and the end session helped me to see that I'd actually changed quite a bit. Initially, I noticed one such incident at the drama therapy. I understood that you didn't have to speak a single word, but still the communication is through. That was a milestone. After that, I decided to attend every session. I came back from the drama therapy and I started to realize there are a lot of things that you do silently. I thought, okay, this is good. I need to come back. The influence of others, group work and feedback upon the change taking place was a common theme, with clients commenting that feedback from the drama therapist allowed them to see the change for themselves, and that receiving feedback from peers allowed them to look at themselves differently. So then the second frame was about the experience of drama therapy. So I can't see the ones at the top because of the way the screen is, but
Louise, it says decreased intensity,
yeah,
and experience as individual.
Right, that's the two words I can't see. That's great. So
Yeah.
Decreased intensity is about ways that we take pressure off ourselves. So humour's obviously one of them, metaphors and masks, and then individual. Well, the thing was, activities were so diverse that there weren't really any clear themes on that one. But a safe environment, non-judgmental, unpressured, comfortable, safe, sessions taking things slowly, peers, people who respect and understand. That was important. Being co-produced made it accessible and tailored, and people liked it being personal. Someone said you gave me the power, so it was a powerful thing being co-produced. And power is a very important thing when you might have been sexually ill quite recently. Challenging, busy, new people, role play, improvisation, feeling out of the comfort zone, feeling self-conscious. They were all the challenging part of drama therapy. Some people enjoyed the reflective space, being abstract, non-verbal, enjoyable, fun, different from talking therapies, being in a group, reflecting on real life situations, and having that choice of opting in or out and deciding when to share and when to not. So a lot of power there. And the emotional contradictions are really interesting. So there's quite a lot, often people said they didn't like something, but it led to safety. It made them feel uncomfortable. They didn't enjoy something, but then they found it helpful. Finding something difficult, but enjoying it. Being afraid, but wanting to do it. So that was a big part of this. So I think this is a helpful way of thinking about it. I can't go into the detail, but I like this quote. People told me about drama therapy beforehand, and I can't even remember what they said because you don't understand it until you're here. It's really hard to put into words. You just have to experience it. Initially, I was not so particular, but gradually I liked it so much that I made sure I came for the groups. Sometimes you feel reluctant or struggling, and I really tried not to quit because I really liked it, and I tried to attend because it was more relaxed. Everybody was pretending. You didn't have to be serious. You can just talk about anything, pick up a prop, just play with it. So it gave a chance to practice how to go out in the real world and deal with your situations just like that. So this safe environment, some clients liked that it was slow and very comfortable. There was lack of pressure to verbally contribute, and that helped them stay in the room and helped them to feel safe throughout their therapy. I liked it was low pressure environment. People appreciated the gentle transition into the group. The way drama therapy physically creates a safe space, the steps of preparing the room for safety are restful. I really like the relaxation at the beginning of the group. It always puts me in a chilled mindset. I notice I become more calm and relaxed when in the drama therapy sessions. Casson insists on extended assessment of 6 sessions, which I know is unusual in many services. If you're looking to join a group, this really is important when people are incredibly suspicious. Perhaps they've been treated very badly. So to trust the therapist enough to enter a group of strangers, and that also allows for a whole new language to emerge. So people within that space are able to have a relationship between themselves and other people. That shared preparation, enabled us to be conscious of each person's role needs, their shared understanding of projective metaphor. We developed that language and also how embodiment works specifically within that space, so that when they arrived, they were all on the same page. I needed people to understand there could be no eye contact. My voices are aggressive towards other people, and so knowing they wouldn't be provoked, that made it feel more possible. It's more accepting. The good thing about the group is people do know to respect what you say. When you say, give me space, they actually do. I like being able to talk through my emotions and act them out in group therapy, as it allowed me to get used to groups in general. I've always been worried my nerves would show and people would know I was anxious. But in drama therapy, people understood and felt the same, and that took the pressure away. Emotional contradiction. So some people, and maybe this is about what they're dealing with. There's so much to be dealt with at this point. So some people expressed enjoyment at an activity, but they didn't notice it as helpful. One client said he could have talked about it rather than act, but then mentioned how acting helped. Showing gets it out. I felt focused. Activities, particularly warm-ups, made them feel discomfort, and yet later led to feelings of safety. So for example, I didn't like the breathing exercises because I found it hard to relax in front of people, although sometimes I enjoyed it. Some spoke of being simultaneously wanting to get involved. Clients expressed dislike for something they later acknowledged as helpful. I didn't enjoy the projection work. It did help, though, look at patients. I disliked the breathing exercises as I didn't really see the point of them. I think I'm now more aware of my emotions and I'm able to keep calmer in situations. To be honest, the breathing did actually help with this. So distance techniques, they help. These are helpful tools that reduce the intensity of sessions and ultimately made it more accessible. And these are things like metaphor. So one person said, by representing things, I know it makes it easier to deal with. And that's the thing with drama therapy in general, because I can talk quite a lot, but it's being physical and representing how you feel in that way rather than saying it. And masks. It was not always easy. Masks helped me stay in the group. I had a favorite mask because I could put it on when I got anxious and I could tell myself, they're not looking at me, they're looking at the mask. That helped me stay in the group. Theatre conventions. There's no pressure to be part of any part of it. It's complete freedom. At the same time, you have control over what you're comfortable with. The audience chairs are a safe place. And even if you don't use them, it's comfortable to have them there. They stop you having to leave altogether if things feel too much. And of course, humour, the greatest distancing device. You come to a group and you get to play, you get to be a bit silly. In doing these things, you're not focusing on what is going on in your mind. I think co-production is a really important thing about all arts therapies. It's like you should let me basically dictate it. You gave me the power. Feels like CBT puts pressure on me almost. You gave me the option. Clients are encouraged to reject anything intolerable and experiment together with the space and metaphor needed to experience the correct dramatic, or we might call aesthetic, distance. They may be far away, directed by me, the therapist, right across the stage from the audience, or dramatically embodied in person. Once confident, they may not need metaphor at all and bring real life ideas or scenarios. Working with yes and no gave permission to keep saying no, keep going and not give in. Other clients also spoke to the way that sessions were developed to be accessible and personal to them, tailored to their specific needs and goals. And of course, that comes from having 6 individual sessions, and you sort of know what people are working through before you go into the group. I think a lot of people found it challenging in very different ways, and I've included this quote to really sum that, how different it can be. Engaging with people in the business of some of the group sessions, feeling out of their comfort zone and feeling self-conscious as they were put on the spot, obviously really difficult. The main challenge for clients when referencing specific activities was in role play and improvisation work, not surprisingly, which one client spoke of a difficulty being creative when asked to make things. So people are being taken out of their comfort zone. But the way they were taken out of the comfort zone differed so much that it's very difficult to have one example. And I've chosen this to give you a taste of that. Going fast and slow, because as well as having psychosis, I've got ADHD. So quite often I do things quite rushed or without much thought process in what I'm doing. And it doesn't always give me the best outcome in life. Until I was going really, really slow for the first time in the group. What that was for me, I was so frustrated. I was walking slower with my feet, but I had to keep, I just couldn't do it. It was frustrating. But then I thought about that quite a lot, because I was like, why am I doing that? And then I realized it was probably having a negative effect in other parts of my life, that if I could just kind of get into it, I really need to master this, because this is a detriment to you, you know? So finding that I could go slow, because when I've done it again, I found it a lot easier. And that reflective space that you can hear in that person's comment, and that person really enjoyed that exercise, and it was funny because she couldn't come last. The idea of the exercise was to travel across the room, and the winner was the person who came last, and it caused lots of hilarity, but it also lots of reflection. Clients spoke of elements which help foster a reflective space in sessions. Some spoke of how sessions were creative, abstract and non-verbal, while others spoke of the enjoyment and fun in sessions. I like that I was free to take part in the group or not if I wanted to, that there was no pressure to have things all together. I like making things and being practical. And although scary, getting feedback on what I had done helped explain more about myself. Dramatherapy made it more possible. Dramatherapy is much better than CBT is. I found it weird and somewhat stuck. Dramatherapy is more entertaining, and you learn more when you're entertained. So the implications of our thematic analysis come back to that original article I mentioned, this opportunity. It was published in June last year, and it was called Improving Treatments for Psychotic Disorders Beyond Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for Psychosis. And it was written by experts in both neuroscience and indeed founders of the early intervention psychosis model. And they build on opportunities identified from neuroscience, and they mention body movement, social media, not drama therapy. Drama therapy is a safe place to explore self and other through the long assessment to create tolerance and the new language of EPR. So that long assessment period really supports people, and the fact that they can explore themselves and their relationship with others in groups with the decreased intensity of those drama therapy tools. And this is what I would say the results of the article talk about. So this is what, if we're looking beyond CBT for psychosis, this is what that set of people felt the evidence suggested we should be doing. And I invite you to make a comparison, as I have. They made 3 points. Work needs to have an emphasis on the overall framework of altered experience rather than specific contents of cognition. And I would argue that's distant work, metaphor, mask, humor, the decreased intensity of EPR. Implicit, non-verbal, intersubjective experience rather than overemphasizing the relevance and need for direct interpersonal action. It's the reflective space that's shared. So watching and reflecting on others doing the same thing as you do at the same time, and the importance of the assessment process to create enough trust to enable the group process to occur and to tolerate others. And indeed, quite a lot of those 16% who stay in drama therapy to the point where they're revisiting their lives and replaying scenes are doing it with the support of a small homemade group of supporters. So maybe their care coordinator and other staff, because it's actually the witnessing of self that creates the shifts, the liminal shifts that I think this thematic analysis is speaking of. Developing and supporting a more robust sense of self-presence to cultivate a reduction in excessive analysis, reflectious and anxious self-awareness, working towards a stronger sense of embodiment. And I invite you to think, when that client said showing gets it out, that was an example of the dramatic embodiment, the dramatic projection that Armstrong defines as the change ingredient that her article has witnessed. I think she had a set of people all scoring, and it's quite a solid piece of work, which shows that you can actually see the moment of creative flow, of real focus. And I think that Nelson's article here is talking about that sense of embodiment, of true creative flow. And so that's what we need to do. We need to show, get it out. And maybe it's not drama therapists, maybe it's all arts therapists, but I do think drama therapists are really lagging behind in this area. And that's really what I wanted to say. So yeah, if there are any questions. Shall I stop sharing now?
Louise, thank you so much. I was re-inspired by drama therapy, if I ever needed to be re-inspired, and also really moved by the client's voice, and the client's voice being at the center of it all. So thank you. There are questions, so we might not get to all of them, but let's see.
Yeah, I can see someone asking about references. I'm sorry, I'd run out of time. I don't know what we do about that. I can probably pull them together after this event.
It would be great if you could do, and then we can disseminate. So this is from Helen Lote, who says, I was interested in the hearing voices example and the client turning these into fictional characters. Can you say more about what the next stage is? Does the client then become more able to deal with them in a helpful way, for example?
Yes. So this is very dangerous work for the client, because if I talk about the example there, this person was haunted by these newly arrived visions. So they didn't just have a voice, they were also physical, they physically existed, and he was very scared that they would hurt people. So it was a very dangerous thing, and it took a while to get to that point. And so the theatre convention was very important, and he was director. So that's the really important thing. So he's director outside of the stage, and we spent ages, really important time, figuring out that aesthetic distance. And interestingly, once we'd done that piece of work, he had to describe things for me to, because he knew I couldn't see the same things that he could see. And in the describing, there was a sort of separation that I think happens, because he was creating a character and he was giving it all the features that a character has in a story that was now outside of him. So there's obviously an externalizing component to this. And I think that that enabled some neuroscientific process that was happening for him, so that they ceased to be everywhere. They sort of had a boundary, like the theatrical boundary for him, and he started talking about them differently. But also there was another step, which I didn't mention here because I couldn't, it's not part of the thematic analysis. But the emergence of those voices was a crafted thing that I could only tell you about afterwards, because I didn't realize that's what we were working with. Because one of the things that I'm very keen for people to do is to contain their own process. So he wasn't telling me what we were doing. I asked him to do a 6-part story where you have a hero, and he told me the name of the hero, and he did it. It was the first thing that he actually did. Up till then, he was interested in role, and everyone had a role, and he just talked, but he couldn't touch anything or do anything until the 6-part story. And that was where that character, that terrifying character, became the hero of a story. So he managed to give that character, who was dangerous and frightening, an alternative role, because actually what we know about voices is often they do have a helpful role. And that was an interesting process that took a few weeks. So he did that, and he needed to do that to enable him to go, well, it's in that story. Yeah, it's the same name. It took me a while to realize what we were doing. So it's an artful process of being really open to all the communication you're getting from a client, not what they say and combined with what they do, combined with what they leave, everything really.
Louise, there are a few questions actually about issues of safety and sort of being careful when working with psychosis. So there's one here from Elizabeth Richards that says, do you find that there are any things to be careful of when working in role with psychosis? And on the same front, any particular benefits from role? For instance, using Landy's role theory. Mm-hmm.
Using who? Landy's role theory.
Landy's, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Landy's role theory. There's in assessment in dramatherapy, he's written it specifically for this population. So I pretty much follow that exactly when I introduce the role cards. So I think there are two elements to this answer. So there's the opportunity of the concept of roles shifting that is really positive. The idea, if you think about with psychosis, people are living in quite often people will pick the word vampire to describe their experience of life. They are enrolled as vampire wherever they go at home. People go, oh, because they've had a psychotic episode, everyone's walking on eggshells around them. Really hard. And yet if you give someone a set of 56 role cards, they'll find something that they are, and they'll also start to see things that they could become. What would you want more of? And so we start to have real hope. So the Landy's role cards are brilliant. In fact, I would quite like to look at all the role cards. So I tend to take a photograph and I do it as a pre and post, as a sort of goodbye exercise. And people love it when I get the old thing out and they see how much they've shifted, and it's really wonderful. It's one of those, you know, absolutely brings up the emotion for me when I see how much they've changed. It's incredible. To answer your question about role work, if you're talking about embodied role work, now that's a totally different matter. No way would I embody role work. The idea of shifting roles is very exciting. The idea of wearing a mask is very exciting, but I don't let them wear them. They don't wear masks, they hold them, right? Because there's that risk of role confusion. So you have to be really careful, but it's about following some very simple rules, which is that they are in control of their own safety. We have to, you know, the world is moving to a well-being model. If we infantilize everyone and say that they don't know how to keep themselves safe, they don't know how to keep themselves safe. If we start to say, well, you're the expert, you know, what is okay? Is it okay? Are you okay with a mask? Oh, a mask is right. You okay with, that's really close. Maybe that's too soon. And you can have whole sessions where people just say, no, I'm not doing, no. Brilliant. We know all the things that we're not going to do. That's fantastic. We will find something together. There is hope. And so when we do any role work, and sometimes you get people who love role work and they're straight in there and they're sitting in a chair being there, someone who loves them. And you have to do really careful work about stepping away and taking all the things off and leaving the chair and washing it off and absolutely embody it. It's really important. And the other thing I would say, which is really important, do not let anyone push you into a small room. It will not work. You have to be in the biggest room you can get, because otherwise they can't control the space from there. They're never going to share a voice that scares them in a small room. I've made that point well. I have the biggest room, and yeah.
Thanks, Louise. Kira, Kenny, forgive mispronunciation, everyone, if I mispronounce your name. Do you ever find that dramatherapy confused a person's perception of reality?
Say that again, sorry.
Did you ever find that dramatherapy confused a person's perception of reality?
Yes. This is the skill of the dramatherapist. If you introduce art materials, there is a risk of role confusion. And so the skill is to create enough space and to be totally transparent about what's happening. And I don't mean that I always know what's happening, but I run a commentary of transparency. I notice that the drawing you've got is something similar to what you're wearing. Is that the same person as you right now? Is that what you're saying? And I invite people, anyone who knows about Gary Prouty will understand the concept of contact reflections. This is really simple and vitally important stuff, which is to say, if you're in a catatonic state, being with, which is what Nelson talks about, being with somebody in a catatonic state may be as simple as saying, I noticed you moved your head. I heard the dogs barking. Did you hear the dogs barking? It's that level of understanding of self and other that you really need mirror. So you're mirroring what you see. You're verbalizing what you see. You're not making assumptions about it. You're just running a commentary for them to inform you in whatever way they can. They might just nod, they might move to show you that they're separating, they might take the thing off, they may do it all without words. But that's what, no, it never worries me, because it's what I'm paid to do, is to absolutely be with it and to respect it and to help somebody loosen the bonds of it, because role confusion is so much a part of this. If you don't know, if you're drifting in and out of trauma associative states, half the time you miss the story, you miss the instruction. And you may be sitting with someone who didn't hear half of what you said, so they're now faking it for the rest of the session. So you've got to be really, really switched on to that all the time.
So I'm aware of time, so I do think we have time for one more question, sadly, because it would be wonderful to go through all of these questions. So this is from Richard Trethaway. Does early intervention offer the same opportunities across the country to access arts therapies?
No. That's my answer. No, and they bloody well should. Excuse me for swearing. Yeah, it's slow work, isn't it? And I only work with a fraction of people at short periods. So, and I think it is hard, right? Because where I work in Leeds is one of the biggest early intervention services in the UK, because Leeds is a city and we only have one service. Most bigger cities have split their services. So there is the opportunity to have someone like me working consistently and being really busy. And it is really tough if you're following the nice guidelines, which we all have to do, and you have to let somebody fail at CBT, and the CBT therapist has to come to me and say, this person, there's just no way they can do it. And that's sad, isn't it? I hope that changes, because by the time people see me, they're often quite suicidal, because they just think CBT was the thing I was waiting for and I couldn't do it, so I've got no chance now. And I hope that changes.
Louise, thank you very, very much. I wish it was longer. I wish we could take more questions, but really, thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been great. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
That's so interesting.
The thank yous in the
Yeah.
in the
Oh, yeah,
questions and the
definitely, I
chat. So
will.
there are thank yous.